A large number of police cars are parked in the middle of the street. A police officer reports the situation over the walkie-talkie. Around 4 o'clock in the morning, a shooting took place on Street 112. At this point, in the middle of the boss's office, on his knees in front of his boss, stands a fair-haired guy named Idays, his supervisor, clearly displeased with his action. Without thinking, the boy opened fire on the man, whose name is Jin Chin-yu. Having come closer to Dennis, a man in black gloves put a putter on the boy's head. Swinging, he hit the target hard on the head. He was very angry that without his team, Denai decided to shoot Chin-yu. A moment later, the boy's body fell to the floor with a dead load on his head. Taking out a cigarette and lighting it, the boss gave the order to remove the fair-haired man's body. Throwing the golf club. The man turned and left his office. In the hospital at that time, he was stitching up the victim after the morning shootout. A guard was standing behind the boy with brown hair. Fortunately, the boy suffered only a minor concussion due to several blows with a blunt object, but his life is not currently in danger. So the doctor let them go. The only question that was bothering the beaten boy now was the condition of the second victim. The doctor said that the man underwent emergency surgery and is under close supervision. According to a man in a medical gown, it is not the first time he has to pull a victim out of the other world. Unfortunately, the doctor couldn't give any guarantees, but he really hopes that Chin-yu's luck will save him some time. The dog that recently ran up to the doctor whined piteously, as if understanding the whole point of the conversation. The beaten boy really wanted to see Chin-yu, but the guard forbade him to do so, so they went to his workshop. Already there, sitting in front of the statue he was working on, he decided to act. Approaching the door, he once again asked permission to see Chin-yu. But the guards repeatedly refused him a meeting with the boss, under the pretext that the fact that he would sit at the head of the man's bed would not help the situation in any way. The old man understood that his arrival would not help in any way, but the desire to see Jin was too great. The image of a bleeding man lying in his arms immediately appeared in his head. This man sacrificed himself to save him. This was not the first time he had saved the younger man, but once again the boy could not do anything. Swinging, he hit the door with his fist, to which 2 men sitting on the other side of the door displeasedly ordered the boy to be quieter. The young man did not want to back down, so he decided to act as blackmail, to say about his college that he would definitely not miss the disappearance of the best scholar. The guards, who were given the command not to let the boy out, did not even come to the door. They only reminded him who found the drug called Molly. And besides, he is sleeping with their boss for all the good. Because of this, it was simply dangerous for the boy to go outside. Not intending to retreat, the boy grabbed a hammer and hit the door lock with all his might. The door instantly gave way and opened. The guards warned the boy that they did not intend to play with him, but he had already made up his mind. He will no longer listen to them in everything. Those times have already passed. Meanwhile, in Jin, vital signs stabilized, but he was still unconscious. His condition was very untimely. 2 people were talking not far from him. They discussed the current situation. Construction on the land where the mollies were found was stopped. Jin was shot by one of the jackals, Pom Yong. The police will 100% start getting into their business, trying to pressure and sniff out all the information. Now that the mullahs are with them again, people may suffer, as they did 10 years ago. In addition, there will be those who will take advantage of the opportunity and try to appoint another person to the post of director. Despite this situation, the men did not panic. They found an opportunity in these unpleasantnesses. For example, the opportunity to get rid of traitors in their ranks. Jin Chin-yu was lying on a large bed covered with black sheets. Various sensors and catheters were running almost all over his body. The contents of the dropper slowly dripped into the vein. Suddenly, one of the man's fingers twitched. In the memories of Jin, he heard that it was raining the day he was thrown out with an empty bottle of alcohol and a note. There were only a few letters on the note left by his father, or by a passerby, so he was named. The boy did not know his date of birth, his nationality, or any other information about him. Everyone ends up in an orphanage under difficult circumstances, so there is nothing unusual in the story of the black-haired man. A few years later, while playing basketball, Chin-yu saw a boy. The black-haired one asked the younger man's name and threw him a ball. The potato boy caught the ball and introduced himself. His name was Matthew Rayner. In response, the younger asked the older to introduce himself. The older boy introduced himself as Jin. Like all children in the orphanage, the boy seemed very lonely to the elder. Standing in front of the teacher, the tutor, a man with gray hair, bullied Jing for running around at night and stealing. The older man saw no other life for Chin-yu to contact with bandits. He swung and hit the boy. In a moment, Chin-yu is already sitting on the dead teacher's body. The black-haired man got rid of one of the causes of his unhappiness, but the feeling that he got out of this swamp did not leave him. When he was about to leave the orphanage, he was unexpectedly grabbed by the potato boy. He really wanted to go with Jing, but the elder understood that it would not be easy, so he asked the boy to wait for him for now. After Chin got out of the boarding school, he grabbed any job. At one of these, when he brought the bag that the owner asked him for, he heard the voices of other people in the building. These voices turned out to be several policemen who were questioning the owner about Jin. Nodding to the black-haired boy, the owner lied that he had never seen him. Without thinking long, Jin ran. He was worried about the fact that he might have to change districts again and he might be fired from his current job. Suddenly he crashed into two men. The men were not happy with the situation. One of them tried to kick the black-haired man, but he easily blocked the blow. Now two men were kneeling before Jing and assured that they had given everything they had. The black-haired man looked at the connection keys and asked what they were for. One of the keys was from the bike, the other from the apartment where the men lived. Jin decided that these were quite useful things, so he would take them for himself. After getting on the bike, he took the keys from one of the men and was already preparing to go. He was called out. The men begged him to take anything from them, but in exchange teach them to be as cool as Jin. Jin told the men to follow him. At first they did not understand where and why, but the black-haired man turned the key to their apartment on his finger, and they understood everything. It was tacit consent to their request. After meeting Shin Yu and Yun Fat, they had already stung the three of them like dogs. As waiters, they plowed the fields and so on. But even injecting the whole Sunday without laying hands, the earnings were no more than that of a homeless drug dealer. Lying on the bed, the black-haired man looked at the picture, which the potato boy had given him, asking him not to forget him. If he wants to take Matthew, he needs more money. One of the men offered a job he had heard about, on which, if you wave your fists well, you can earn $500. Jumping out of bed, Jin immediately asked, without further ado, where they get paid like that. Many have already heard that Singhai cleaned the area quite well. Some kid came and made a massacre. No one knew who this kid was, but the fact remains from now on, only Singhai can sell Molly on this street. One day when Jin was working as a waiter, the owner asked about his bruised face, to which he just waved it off, saying that he had fallen while delivering, because it was better not to tell about the work he got into. One of the customers asked to bring a bottle of Jolly and vodka. The boy brought the man a bottle of alcohol. The customer turned out to be a dark-haired man wearing gloves. As Jin handed the man the liquor, the dark-haired man spoke. The client asked if Jin still wanted to join the gang and what his name was. Flashbacks, Office of the Sinhai Faction. Jin is standing in front of the boss in black gloves. The only thing he and his team need is food and a place to sleep, and they will work hard and give several times more than it cost. But the boss told them off because those who have nothing to lose do not accept threats. In short, to connect with such one hemorrhoids. Jin considered such a number of criteria too high for recruiting bandits. The dark-haired man in the gloves offered Jin to prove that he would be useful. Let's go back to the cafe where the black-haired guy brought a bottle of alcohol to a man wearing gloves. The man recalled that he had asked the boy's name. Jin replied that he did not have a name. The dark-haired man denied that he had heard the boy's name was Jin, but it was not that important. If a guy wants to start a new life, it is better to do it with a new name. Taking a pen and a piece paper, underscore. A hand in black gloves carefully wrote several hieroglyphs. One of them, Chin, means pure, the second Yu, which translates as jade. Having finished writing, the man held out a piece of paper. Jinyu wonders if he likes it. In China, pure, almost white jade is considered the emperor's stone. Taking the paper with the new name, Jinyu sat down on a chair next to a cafe customer. He was interested in what he would have to do. The boy's new boss answered this with a question about what the boy can do. Jin was not at all embarrassed by the question. He confidently answered that he could do anything. Taking a glass in his hands, the dark-haired man answered that this was enough. Jinya, Shinyun, and Yunfata were hired. Now they are introduced to other employees of this company. The first to vote was a woman with fully tattooed arms. She was very skeptical about the boss's choice, to which the man only asked her to give the boys an opportunity to show themselves. Denny approached them. He was interested in the question why the boss hired these three, if he has them. The woman came closer to Jinyu and asked if he understood what they were doing. To this, he replied that the most important thing for him is that they pay money. At his request, Jihua sent him to work. Sitting in the alley, the three of them considered a plan of action to sell such a large amount of drugs. Qin Yu offered to swing by the universities and the office, handing out new dosage products to everyone who wanted them, and then the customers would return by themselves. Despite the fact that others were afraid to just hand out the pills they were ordered to sell, the plan paid off, and very soon the clients started bringing in money. The boss and Jihua were satisfied with their work and appreciated the idea of giving the first dose for free. That's why Qin Yu was appointed to be in charge of the district where Denai used to be the chief. The gloved man patted Jing's hair, calling him a thorn for trying to escape his ecstasy. The dark-haired man offered the woman to cook meat, to which she agreed. One of the boys shouted at this that he was ready to serve with faith and truth until the end of his life. Jing liked the taste of life that he thought he would never live. His fate turned out to be not such an all-too-enlightening quagmire. At least, that's how it seemed then. The next few years of the boy were dedicated exclusively to the organization, because the boy had nothing to lose from the very beginning. He could afford to make money dealing drugs and swinging his fists. But the new life did not bring him pleasure. It was gnawing at the guy from the inside. Qin knew that he had run away from the past, but in fact he had not moved away from it even a single step. The drug dealer himself got hooked on his goods. The boy no longer had the strength to bear all this. The boss was squatting in front of Jing. The dark-haired one asked what the boy still lacked so that he would stop exhausting himself. The only thing the guy kept asking for was money. Money to buy a house that will be filled with light when he is strong enough to protect what he holds dear and take away one boy. Now the boy understood that even the face of that boy. Taking Qin Yu by the chin with a gloved hand, he forced the boy to look into the eyes of the boss. When eye contact was made, the man continued. He said again that Jin is so strong because he has nothing to lose and the boy will be a burden. In the end, the boss advised the subordinate to forget the past, because the feeling of regret will prevent him from moving on. After that, he put a red pill in the mouth of his subordinate. Jin thought about was the same boy from the orphanage. Now he can no longer wait for his savior. Returning to this time, the beaten boy killed the guards. Jin Qin Yu came to his senses. Jin said was the name of Matthew. The doctor, Xin Yu, and Yunfat were already standing by their boss's bedside. While everyone else was crying for joy that Jin had regained consciousness, the doctor told what had happened. The bullet entered the stomach, but fortunately did not hit vital organs. According to the man in the medical gown, the bullet hit a few millimeters deeper, and they would all have been sitting at the funeral of the black-haired man. Qin Yu was now more worried about what happened to Matthew Rayner. Hearing the question, Xin Yu began to mumble something incoherently. At that moment, two more people entered the room. A woman, with dark hair and a short haircut, who held the position of head, and a man with light hair. The first thing the woman asked when she entered the room was whether Jin had not died yet. Short-haired said that while Jin Qin Yu is cooling down, he is about to be retired. A board of directors was convened to resolve the issue of the husband's dismissal. In the end, the woman advised Jin, if he still expects to take the post of chairman of Xinhai, he should start by keeping his current job. At this time, an extraordinary meeting of the construction firm, Xinhai, is declared open. One of the men sitting at the table asked everyone to agree that the issue of firing the general director is the most important at this time. Some of those present began to raise their hands. The elderly man began his speech. He told that Director Jin was seriously wounded by a firearm and that any organization without leadership is doomed to a quick collapse. And in order to protect Sinhaya from such a fate, it is necessary to appoint another person to the post of manager. The man sat next to the leaning speaker, turned to the man and told that, in his opinion, judging by the decisive mood of the council, the removal of the Chin Yu would be resolved quickly and easily. The stooped man replied that it would be so, because every member of the council had to bow at the feet of the director every day, just because he was Chairman Chen's lover. As it turned out, it was the elderly man who claimed the position of CEO, due to the fact that he was Brandon's right-hand man even before the split of Singhai and the creation of Pomyong, all present at the meeting to vote for Jin's release Chin Yu. The majority of votes were in favor. Unexpectedly, the door opened and Jin entered the room in a wheelchair, followed by Yunfat. He surprised everyone present with his appearance. He asked why they want to send him out of office if he is the most alive of all the living. Crossing one leg over the other, support the chin with one hand. Chin Yu asked for what reason the audience had arranged this circus. The stooped speaker jumped up from his seat, slammed his palm on the table, and began shouting accusations at the current CEO because he had crawled under the bullets to save his lover. Using this as an argument that a person with such moral principles cannot be trusted with the future of the company, Jin easily parried the man's words. Having told that the person whom the people here consider to be the director's lover is actually the guy who found Molly at the construction site for which Chin Yu is responsible, and the fire that opened on the director was one of the pawns, Pomyong. After all that was said, Mr. General Director did not miss the opportunity to remind the elderly man who he is. Chin said that the man must know everything better than anyone if he runs to Brandon with such regularity like an obedient dog. Now it was clear who was spreading rumors about the company. Yunfat suggested canceling the voting results and holding a new one. No hands were raised during the second vote. A request for the resignation of Director Jing was unanimously rejected. The meeting of the board of directors of the construction firm, Xinghai, is over, when only Yunfat and Jin remained in the room. The boss asked not to take his eyes off the elderly speaker, who is in touch with Pomyong. After that, Jin tried to get up but immediately folded in half in pain. He asked Xin Yu, who ran up, to take him to Matthew Rayner to see how badly he was hit with his own eyes. To this, Xin Yu replied that everything is fine with the boy, but there was a slight force majeure. Their employees were injured much more than the boy. At this, Chin Yu asked where Matthew was in disbelief. Xin Yu said that Matthew is right here in the company. Ta and Yunfat took the surprise director to the boy. Jin could not understand how this could happen. As told to the husband, the boy was banned from going outside. Security was attached to Matthew for safety, but he seemed to fly off the rails. He attacked the guards with a hammer and ran away. Finally got here and started a brawl. He wanted to see Jing so badly. I could not find a place for myself. Standing in front of the door of the room where the boy was, Jin thought about how he had asked the boy to be obedient and wait for him. Opening the door, the man entered a dark room, at the end of which sat a bound man, Matthew Rayner, with his mouth taped shut. The first thing the black-haired man asked when he came closer was how the boy could have thought of entering this building, had the instinct of self-preservation completely left him. Jin said that he had already been informed about the act of the boy and the killed workers. Has the guy decided to pretend to be a criminal? Reaching out his hand, the man tore the tape from the boy's mouth and ordered him to speak if there was anything. At first the boy was silent, but then he spoke. He told how he was scared, how then that day the director collapsed in his arms bleeding, and then he was forbidden to see Chin Yu and was not told anything about his condition. Despite the boy's words, the black-haired man was angry with him. He was worried about the younger man. Therefore, he shouted to the boy that he was telling him to wait. The boy told how he had been waiting all his life for this, but no one came back for him, not even Jin himself. Matthew Rayner turned out to be the same potato boy from the orphanage that Jin once promised to take away. Matthew continued. He thanked for the first time when the elder had saved him there in the children's house. Jin didn't understand the boy's emotions. He should have been offended by the black-haired man, but instead he thanked him. Grabbing Matthew by the hair, The older man expressed all his thoughts on the pretext that the boy should not react like that now. At least he was beaten by a pack of 6, he almost died in the middle of the same street, and he doesn't even know why it happened that way. Approaching the younger man's face, the man said that Matthew had no place near him. Letting go of Matthew's hair, the black-haired man ordered the younger one to fail and never look for the older one again. Matthew wasn't ready to give up after all he had done to get here. He and Jing had an agreement that the elder would be the model for the sculpture until the brown-haired man finished the work. Jin was not in favor. He did not want the boy to be executed just because he was near the general director of the Shanghai company. When such an argument did not help, Matthew offered Chin a blowjob. He was ready to do anything just to stay with Jing. Unfastening the snake of the fly with his teeth, Matthew continued to assure his boss that he was quite good at giving blowjobs. Taking it into his mouth, through the fabric of the underwear, the boy began to suck and squeeze the CEO's member. Trying to push the boy away from him, Jin grabbed him by the hair. But even so, the younger man continued his machinations. He began to lick the older man's fingers with his tongue, while trying to get a confession about what the older man likes. Jin's member, despite his best efforts, was almost erect. Gathering his strength, the black-haired man pushed the boy away from him and went to the exit. Jin had almost left the room when a hand was placed noisily next to his face. Matthew managed to tear the tape. The guy said that he was going to make sure that the director would never forget what happened. Taking Jin back to Matthew, Rainer kissed him on the lips. Letting his tongue out, Matthew deepened the kiss. The director stood motionless, but returned the kiss. When the boy began to make strange patterns on the neck of the elder with his tongue, while continuing to stroke the standing member with his hand, the elder asked him to stop several times. Rainer completely ignored all requests, offering to learn something new if his mouth no longer interested the headmaster, or even enter Matthew from behind. Unable to bear all these words, Jin swung and hit the younger man. The headmaster wanted Matthew to finally shut up. Stunned by the blow, the boy fell to the floor. In front of Rainer, Jin Yu stood leaning against the door. The only thing he said before leaving was that he didn't believe Matthew was like that. Closing the door behind him, the CEO slid down the wall to the floor. Even from such simple actions of the boy, the erect member was already cramped in his gray pants. Yunfat ran up to Chin Yu. The bald man picked up his boss and led him out of this corridor. Having received an order from Jing to take care, however, that the boy no longer looms before his eyes. At this, Matthew continued to sit on the floor. Now memories related to the black-haired man flashed through his head. A man he did not understand whether his existence had any meaning to Jin Chin Yu. Sometime after the event at the Sinhai company, an elderly teacher is standing in the middle of the auditorium and is conducting a roll call. Here, he has already reached Matthew by the list Rainer. The boy in the audience did not appear again. There was a whisper among the students. One of the students whispered to the boy in the yellow cap. He asked if the rumors were true that Raynora shouts one of the gangsters. Another student added that this cannot happen. To all this, the boy in the yellow cap ambiguously said that in a quiet vortex there are devils. Matthew entered the audience Rainer. The teacher was very shocked by the appearance of the best scholar of the university. Approaching the teacher, the boy bowed. When the pairs finished, Rainer left the university building. The same boy in the yellow cap from the audience approached him from behind. He invited Matthew to come to the party tonight. He promised a lot of alcohol, many beautiful girls. None of that mattered Rainer. But when the boy said that, in addition to everything mentioned on the menu, there would be something special, Matthew agreed to come without thinking. And now Rainer is sitting alone on the couch at the party. Suddenly, a girl approached him, asked if he was Matthew Rainer, the fair-haired girl, handed the boy a glass of red liquid. That's how everything should have been. Therefore, the boy simply drank the contents of the glass. That's why he came, to take the same drug. The guy was knocked out after the first glass, and 3 girls gathered around him and discussed his appearance. The action of this drug was quite unusual. The body was burning as if on fire, so Matthew took off his white t-shirt. The girl sitting next to him screamed. The effects of the drug made Matthew dizzy. He swayed and leaned on the shoulder of the girl who gave him the glass. Hearing that the boy was dizzy, The girl smiled and said that it should be so. The blonde began to act, approached the boy's ear. She began to ask if the boy liked her, if he was dating someone. After that, she put her hand on the snake of Rainer's jeans. The guy ordered the girl to remove her hands, but she, on the contrary, asked permission to kiss him. It was at this moment that the drug began its main effect. He appeared in the girl's place, Jin, who asked him to open his mouth. As soon as the boy complied, the man pulled Matthew into a kiss with his tongue. This is exactly the effect of the red pills. A black car was speeding along the highway. Shinyu is sitting next to Yunfat behind the driver's wheel, and Jin is sitting in the back seat, Chinyu. The director was still thinking about the boy he hit. Turning to his wards, he asked if it was very painful to receive a punch from the boss. Having eaten, men said that his blow stings sharply. Jin ordered to report the situation. Shinyu said that Rainer sat in his work studio for several days, went to university today, and is now at a party at his teammate's house. Jin smiled at the fact that the boy pulled away as best he could, loosening the pressure of the tie on his neck. At this time, the girl was sitting on Matthew's hips, Rainora passionately kissing a boy, confronting him with tongues. But for Matthew, under the influence of a narcotic substance, there was no light-haired girl. There was only Jin, who was now kissing him so passionately. The man asked about how long the potato boy had been waiting for him, how painful it was from his blow. Chinyu covered the boy's neck with kisses, after which he took off his jacket. He asked what he needed to do for the boy, offered various options, starting with being a model for a statue, ending with an option to have sex until a complete shutdown. The boy picked up Chinyu and changed his position. Now the man was under the boy. Unexpectedly, the illusion created by the drug dissipated. Beneath Rainer lay a half-naked, fair-haired girl. Pushing her away, Matthew headed for the exit, grabbing a handful of red pills from the table on the way. A girl, whom he had just so rudely pushed away from him, screamed after him. As soon as Matthew left the room and walked down the street, he was immediately followed by two men who were ordered to follow the boy. From these red pills, you can see any desired fantasies as if in reality. Everything that happened now was what the boy wanted so much. He wanted to hear from Jin that he needed him, that Jin would stay with the boy forever. Matthew Rainer fell to the tiled path of the street. A man wearing black gloves, dressed in the same black coat, asked if everything was okay with the boy. After that, he extended his hand to help the boy, noticing that Matthew's face was familiar to him. Two loaders worked at the warehouse. They were carrying boxes of 99% pure product. One of them tried to guess how much money can be made by selling all this. The other advised him not to go where they are not asked, and not to count the money of the mafia. At this time, Jin received a call from the lady chairman, during which the woman wanted to find out what the CEO is going to do with Molly. To this, the general director replied that he first wanted to release the product to the market in order to preserve liquid assets, which can be quickly turned into funds if something happens. The woman was still worried that if Singhai will be the only distributors, other organizations will not turn a blind eye to it. The general director quickly found out who the head of the company was talking about, and he hastened to assure that Pomyong will not be a problem and will get credit for the hole in Jing's stomach. The woman only said that the man tells a good story for a person who can't move in front of Brandon one more time. Here, Yunfat ran up to the black-haired man and whispered something to the director. After the words of his ward, Jin hastily ended the conversation with the woman, promising to call back later. At that time, a woman in a burgundy jacket was calling her husband. She was waiting for her husband in the theater, where the performance in which their daughter was performing was already starting. Brandon, who was driving, told the woman to start watching without him. After finishing the conversation, the man looked at the student, who had almost fallen asleep sitting on the car seat, and warned the boy that if he falls asleep here, then he will be completely unwell. Raising a hazy look at the man, Matthew tried to understand where he was and who the man sitting in front of the boy was. The man told how he found a student in an inadequate condition, lying in the middle of the street, and picked him up there. Brandon wondered what the student drank, or even accepted. The guy said that it was from the drink he drank at the party. after asking if Rainer's parents don't mind that he doesn't take care of his health. The elder handed Matthew a bag and told him that his daughter is engaged in ballet and invites her father to her performances every time. After listening to the man's story, Matthew said that his parents do not know because they died when he was young. Comparing all the facts that he knows, Brandon guessed that this guy is the same one who once wanted to take Chin Yu away. After that, he grabbed Rainer's face with his gloved hand and began to question whether he and Jing were just sleeping. Matthew replied that Jin was his model. Hearing this, the man laughed. Commenting on the situation, Chin has a talent for looking after children. The driver asked where to go to the boss's families in the theater, to which Brandon said that it's okay if they're a little late for the show, but now the main thing is to take care of their precious guest.